Have you ever wondered why more and more movies and games seem designed to fail, and yet people still defend them like they are masterpieces? Back in 2011, in his book The Queer Art of Failure, Jack Halberstam introduced the term toxic positivity. He used it to criticize that modern habit of forcing a smile on everything even when reality is falling apart. And I have to say it, today the entertainment industry is the biggest example of this. Hello dear viewers and welcome back. My name is Amilcar, I am a sci-fi and dark fantasy author and this is 4 Cents. For the past several years, both Hollywood and the video game industry have been giving us more and more mediocre, soulless and honestly questionable products. Why? Because almost no one dares to tell them the truth. This isn't working. In gaming, we saw it clearly with Highguard. A team of developers with an impressive resume created a game that almost nobody enjoyed. Hollywood is doing exactly the same thing. The most recent and talked about case is the Supergirl script. An actress who seems to be looking for new paths decided to jump into writing a big budget production, and the result left a lot to be desired for the amount of money they spent. And this has become standard practice in the industry. People without enough experience or talent surrounded by others who just applaud everything instead of giving honest feedback. No one tells them this isn't working, no one helps them correct, improve or grow. They just feed the illusion until reality hits them hard and, in many cases, destroys their careers. Look, being honest is not the same as being cruel. What's cruel is staying silent when your opinion could actually help someone. In writing, for example, most authors use proofreaders or beta readers. These are people who read the full manuscript and give you real, sincere, and sometimes thought feedback. The feedback is often what makes the difference between a bestseller and a total flop. I'm sure some of you are thinking, but doesn't that already exist in films with screen test and in-game with beta testers? Yes, they exist, but with an important differences. Screen tests work when the core story is already solid and you just need to polish details. A scene that doesn't flow, a continuity error, things like that. The real problem appears when the original script is bad from the root. And that's exactly what happened with Supergirl. The script is so weak that even the critics who usually defend this kind of projects have pointed it out. What's more, I get the feeling they're using the script as a scapegoat to explain the box office failure, when the real issue started much earlier. The concept itself, the casting choices, picking such a polarizing character inside a cinematic universe that still hasn't taken off and that keeps adding elements which create more confusing and contradictions instead of building harmony. The same thing happens with beta testers. In the past, companies paid specialized people to test their games for months before release. Nowadays, it's the opposite. We, the gamers, the community, the players, pay for the privilege of being beta testers. The only difference is that the industry just calls it early access. That's why we see more and more games launching practically unplayable only to be patched for months or years. The most emblematic case is Cyberpunk 2077, which became the perfect example of how not to launch a game. On top of that, the video game industry has another big creative problem. Many game directors use the medium as a vehicle for their personal art project or interactive movie in quotes. Quite a few got into games because they couldn't make it as film director. Look, I've worked on game scripts and world building projects myself. And even though my main profession is writing novels, I've always been very clear about one thing. I'm writing a game, not a movie. Every line of dialogue, every decision, every element of the world is designed around player interaction and the system, not around in how this will look on the big screen. And if we talk about the entertainment industry in general, there is another serious issue: tribalism and political segmentation. It's becoming more and more common for critics and journalists, instead of informing and guiding you as a consumer, to try to lecture or indoctrinate you. They use their, in quotes, expert title to push a political agenda. In reality, behind many reviews there is no honest analysis of the product quality, just an attempt to convince you to think like them. And the result is sad. The audience feels attacked, rejects both the message and the product, even if the product itself has had nothing to do with that agenda. They end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. As I said at the beginning, toxic positivity is a sickness of our time, and it has been massively reinforced by social media, which often turns into a giant echo chambers. Their people defend mediocre products or untalented creators as if they were leading a holy crusade against the bad guys who dare to criticize. In the end, what they are often defending isn't the product, it's their own political identity. But not everything is negative. There are cases where constructive criticism and actually listening to the audience have had an enormously positive effect. In films, we have the example of Sonic the Hedgehog. The first trailer received a wave of criticism because of Sonic realistic design and realistic. The studio listened, changed the character to be faithful to the games, and the movie became a box office success that opened the door to a whole successful saga. In video games, we have even stronger examples. Cyberpunk 2077 launched in terrible shape, as I said before, but CD Projekt Red didn't sit back. They fixed practically everything the community pointed out. Thanks to that, they turned the story around, and the fans rewarded that effort with the huge success of Phantom Liberty. Something similar happened with No Man's Sky, which went from a launch disaster to become one of the most loved and constantly updated games of the last decade. As a writer, I've experienced this myself. In one of my books, I had to cut several scenes because even though they were very impactful, they risked generating massive rejection and turning the story into something only a very specific niche of extreme sadism and gore would enjoy. In another case, I completely changed the design of an elemental race. Originally, they were ethereal amorphous beings true to their nature, but my proofreaders recommended making them more humanoid. That change allowed readers to identify with them much more easily, and the story gained a lot of empathy and reach. So, in the end, toxic positivity is hurting both creators and audiences. The solution isn't to applaud everything, it's learning to give and receive honest feedback. Only then can we create better stories, better games, and better movies. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. I love to read your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what's the last movie, show, or game that you defended like crazy and later admitted it wasn't actually good? Do you think the entertainment industry needs more honest feedback and less toxic positivity, or do you feel the criticism is getting too harsh? Once again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Amilcar and I'll see you on the next 4cents video. Bye bye.